nothing short of an atom bomb detonating across the world of Formula One. This isn't your run-of-the-mill "we've adjusted the rear wing" kind of news. This is a seismic, rule-breaking shakeup that could redefine the entire grid. And let me tell you, the ripples of this move don't stop at 2025. No. This is a play with future dominance scrawled all over it, particularly with the looming rule overhaul in 2026. Strap in, folks, because Red Bull's latest revelations are juicier than a soap opera plot twist, and you'll want to stick around until the end to catch every insane twist and turn. Smash that like button, hit subscribe, and let's dive into the chaos of Red Bull's big gamble. First things first, Red Bull, the undisputed kings of pushing aerodynamics to the bleeding edge, have decided to ditch their extreme approach for the RB21. Yes, you heard that right. The car that turned Max Verstappen into an untouchable god on wheels is getting a full-on philosophy makeover. After 4 years of living on the razor's edge, 2024 revealed cracks in their dominance, with McLaren and Ferrari swooping in to exploit weaknesses. That ultra-aggressive front-wing design? A masterpiece on some circuits but a disaster on others, destabilizing airflow and tanking overall performance. It turns out their obsession with bold aero had become unsustainable. Enter the RB21, a sleeker, more balanced machine built to tame the diva-like tantrums of its predecessor. This isn't just a car upgrade. It's an existential pivot. Imagine Red Bull going from a Lamborghini to a Range Rover, still elite, but trading flash for reliability. The bold front wing that screamed "eat my dust" is getting a makeover to prioritize balance and consistency. It's not just a design shift. It's a survival strategy. But the million-dollar question is whether this gamble will keep them ahead or serve up the opening their rivals have been salivating over for years. And speaking of drama, 2025 isn't just about reworking the car. It's about navigating uncharted territory. With the exit of Adrian Newey, the engineering god who rewrote the F1 rulebook, Red Bull faces a leadership vacuum so massive it could be its own subplot in a thriller. Newey's genius wasn't just about building cars. It was about crafting empires. His departure leaves Pierre Wash with the unenviable task of steering the ship, and while optimism swirls about fresh perspectives, let's be real. The guy is stepping into shoes that might as well be Mount Everest in size. Oh, but the drama doesn't stop there. Whispers from the paddock suggest Newey's departure wasn't all smiles and handshakes. Rumors of long-simmering tensions with Christian Horner paint a picture of a genius undervalued. Imagine that, the architect of Red Bull's golden age feeling like an afterthought. Whether or not the internal politics affected the decision, one thing is clear, the timing couldn't be worse. With 2026 monumental regulatory changes on the horizon, losing your master strategist feels like swapping out the captain of your ship in the middle of a hurricane. Let's not forget the wolves circling in the water. McLaren, fresh off their blistering 2024 resurgence, is a genuine thorn in Red Bull's side. Ferrari, they've finally stopped playing strategy darts in the dark and are charging forward like they've remembered their Ferrari. Even Mercedes, amidst its rebuild, isn't a team you count out. For the first time in years, Red Bull looks vulnerable. And the rest of the grid? They smell blood. So, what's Red Bull's playbook for 2025? They're aiming for consistency, reworking the RB21 to smooth out the rough edges that cost them in 2024. But here's the catch. Focusing on balance might mean sacrificing some of the raw, terrifying speed that's been their hallmark. And if that trade-off doesn't pay dividends, well, 2025 could be the year the dynasty starts to wobble. Now let's zoom out and talk big picture. The 2024 season was Red Bull's wake-up call. It started strong, with Max Verstappen obliterating the field in the first half, but by mid-season, the cracks were impossible to ignore. McLaren's upgrades turned them into genuine title contenders, and Ferrari capitalized on Red Bull's Achilles heel, tire degradation and unpredictable aero. Verstappen managed to claw back some critical wins in the final stretch, but it wasn't enough to silence the doubters. The once insurmountable gap to their rivals had evaporated, leaving Red Bull scrambling to reassess everything. Car design, team dynamics, the whole 9 yards. And then there's 2026, the regulatory overhaul that's essentially a giant reset button for the sport. Stricter cost caps, revamped aero rules, and radical power unit changes are about to upend the game. For Red Bull, this isn't just a challenge. It's a high-wire act over a pit of sharks. They're caught between defending Verstappen's title in 2025 and preparing for the unknowns of 2026. Focus too much on the short term, and they risk falling behind in the new era. But shift resources to 2026 too soon, and they hand their rivals a free pass to dominate next season. And speaking of Verstappen, the pressure on him is about to hit unprecedented levels. He's already the backbone of the team, providing unparalleled feedback and consistency. But with a greener-than-grass Liam Lawson as his new teammate, Verstappen essentially becomes a one-man army, tasked with carrying Red Bull through this turbulent transition. It's like asking a guy to fly the plane, fix the engine mid-air, and serve drinks to the passengers, all at once. Meanwhile, the competition isn't sitting idle. McLaren's got momentum, Ferrari's finally got its act together, and even Aston Martin is throwing its hat into the ring. The grid is more competitive than ever, and Red Bull can't afford a single misstep. And the stakes only get juicier as we delve deeper into Red Bull's unfolding saga. The RB21 isn't just a car, it's a statement, a declaration that Red Bull isn't willing to rest on its laurels but isn't immune to the chaos that comes with pushing boundaries. Yet, with every bold move, the cracks in their armor become more visible. Let's talk about those cracks, starting with the elephant-sized gap left by Adrian Newey. Newey's departure isn't just a personnel change. It's like tearing the soul out of a team that's built its entire identity around his genius. Imagine the guy who's basically been the Yoda of F1 engineering walking out the door, leaving everyone scrambling to figure out how to use the Force without him. Pierre Wash might be stepping up, but let's face it, there's no handbook for replacing Newey. And while Red Bull will undoubtedly sing the praises of new perspectives and fresh ideas, behind closed doors, you can bet there's some serious hand-wringing going on. Meanwhile, McLaren and Ferrari are sharpening their knives. McLaren, buoyed by their 2024 resurgence, isn't just hungry, they're downright ravenous. Their mid-season upgrades last year weren't just impressive, they were terrifying. By the time the season ended, they weren't just nipping at Red Bull's heels, they were biting chunks out of their lead. And then there's Ferrari, finally remembering their, well, Ferrari. With their dynamic driver lineup and newfound strategic competence, they're not just in the fight, they're swinging for the fences. But it's not just about the immediate threats. The looming 2026 regulation changes are like a ticking time bomb for every team on the grid, and Red Bull's position is particularly precarious. Do they double down on 2025, pouring every resource into defending their title, or do they shift focus to 2026, risking a lackluster season now in hopes of future dominance? It's a classic damned if you do, damned if you don't scenario, and the pressure is enough to make even the most seasoned strategists break a sweat. And speaking of pressure, let's not forget Max Verstappen. The guy's already carrying the team on his back like some sort of F1 Atlas, and now he's got the added responsibility of mentoring rookie teammate Liam Lawson. Lawson's got potential, sure, but is stepping into one of the most cutthroat teams in F1 history. Verstappen, meanwhile, is expected to not only dominate on the track but also guide the team through its most turbulent period in over a decade. If anyone can do it, it's Max, but even he has his limits. Internally, Red Bull's engineering team is facing a challenge unlike anything they've seen before. The RB21 is a bold departure from their usual philosophy, but boldness doesn't always equal brilliance. With a simplified design aimed at consistency, the car risks losing some of the raw, terrifying speed that has been Red Bull's calling card. And if the car underperforms, every engineer, strategist, and pit crew member knows the blame will be laid squarely at their feet. Meanwhile, the rest of the grid smells opportunity. Aston Martin, bolstered by their partnership with Honda, is quietly building a machine that could disrupt the hierarchy. Alpine is making noise about their ambitious plans, and even Mercedes, currently a shadow of their former selves, is gearing up for a comeback. The competition is tighter than ever, and Red Bull doesn't just have to defend their throne, they have to fend off a full-blown coup. As the countdown to the 2025 season continues, one thing is clear. This isn't just a test of Red Bull's engineering prowess or Verstappen's skill. This is a test of their resilience, their ability to adapt, and their capacity to maintain dominance in a sport that's constantly evolving. The decisions they make now won't just define their season, they'll define their legacy. So, here we are, folks, at the precipice of what could be one of the most defining seasons in Red Bull's history. The RB21 isn't just a car, It's a gamble, a recalibration, a bold attempt to maintain dominance while facing challenges from every direction. But let's not kid ourselves. The stakes are enormous, the pressure is suffocating, and the margin for error is non-existent. On one side, you've got a team trying to reinvent itself mid-dynasty. Red Bull has built an empire on innovation, risk-taking, and pure engineering brilliance. But now, they're navigating uncharted waters without Adrian Newey, the mastermind who has been their guiding light for nearly 2 decades. It's like trying to steer the Titanic through an iceberg field. Only this time, everyone else on the grid is throwing rocks at you, hoping to punch a hole in your hull. On the other side, you've got the competition, smelling blood in the water and ready to pounce. McLaren, Ferrari, Aston Martin, Mercedes, hell, even Alpine, are all waiting for Red Bull to slip, to make that one mistake that opens the floodgates. And let's not forget the massive elephant in the room, 2026. The upcoming regulations are a reset button for everyone. And Red Bull knows that staying ahead now means playing a delicate balancing act between short-term dominance and long-term survival. Then there's Max Verstappen. Max, the machine, the untouchable, the man who has carried Red Bull through thick and thin. But even he is human, and the weight of being the sole anchor for a team in transition isn't something you just brush off. Pairing him with a rookie like Liam Lawson isn't just a risk, it's a test of whether Verstappen's leadership and raw talent can compensate for the steep learning curve Lawson will undoubtedly face. But let's not forget what makes Red Bull, their resilience. Every time this team has been doubted, every time someone said this is the end, they found a way to rise, to innovate, to dominate. The RB21 is a bet, a big, bold, audacious bet, that prioritizing balance and reliability will pay off in the short term while giving them a stable foundation for the seismic changes coming in 2026. If it works, Red Bull won't just stay at the top, they'll redefine what staying at the top means. However, if it doesn't work, oh boy, the floodgates will open, and we'll be watching a feeding frenzy as McLaren, Ferrari, and the rest of the grid try to rip the crown from Red Bull's head. This isn't just about a car or a team. This is about the legacy of one of the most dominant forces F1 has ever seen. So, here's the big question. Is Red Bull poised for their greatest triumph, or are we about to witness the start of a monumental fall from grace? Will Max Verstappen and the RB21 silence the doubters and solidify their place in the history books? Or will the pressure, the competition, and the looming spectre of 2026 prove too much even for this powerhouse team? Whatever happens, one thing is clear. 2025 is going to be absolutely insane. Every race, every lap, every decision will feel like it's happening on a knife's edge. And we'll be here for all of it, dissecting the drama, the chaos, and the brilliance that only Formula One can deliver. So, hit that like button, smash subscribe, and ring the notification bell, because trust me, you do not want to miss a second of what's about to go down. The story of Red Bull's rise, their dominance, and their fight to stay on top is far from over. Buckle up, folks,